All right, imagine this. Two factories, same industry, same cutting-edge technology. Both have fancy IoT sensors, AI-powered machines, and enough data to make a NASA engineer sweat. But there's one crucial difference. One factory is thriving, running like a well-oiled machine, decisions happening in real time. The other, well, let's just say if decision-making were a sport, they'd still be stretching while the game is already over. Let's start with Factory A. This place has more data than it knows what to do with. It's all there: machine performance, supply chain analytics, real-time production stats. But here's the catch. Only a handful of executives and IT folks have access to it. You know, the chosen ones. The rest of the employees? Good luck. If they want to check real-time machine health, they have to submit a request, wait for IT to generate a report, and by the time it arrives, the problem has either magically resolved itself or burned down half the production line. And then there's Factory B, same technology, same amount of data, but here's the twist. Every single employee, from floor workers to line managers, can actually see what's happening. They have access to dashboards, self-service analytics, real-time alerts. If a machine starts acting up, a technician doesn't have to file a ticket and pray someone reads it before retirement. They see the data, act on it, and fix the issue before it spirals. Now, back at Factory A, management is in a meeting, staring at reports that are already outdated, wondering why their supply chain collapsed overnight. Meanwhile, Factory B saw the warning signs weeks ago and already made adjustments. One company is dodging disasters, the other is trying to figure out why their warehouse suddenly looks like a scene from a post-apocalyptic movie. And that, my friends, is the difference between hoarding data and democratizing data. One creates bottlenecks, the other creates agility. The crazy part? Factory A could have avoided half of their problems just by letting people see the data they already have. But no, that would be too easy, right? So let's talk about this. Why do companies still cling to this old school gatekeeper mentality when it comes to data? Why is it that the people who actually need insights to do their job are often the last ones to get them? And most importantly, how do we fix this mess before another company ends up starring in a business school case study titled, "What Not to Do in the Age of Data"? Let's get into it. Let's start with a simple question. What if your factory could think for itself? Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But welcome to Industry 4.0, where this is no longer a far-fetched idea. We're in the middle of a manufacturing revolution, one where machines aren't just doing what we tell them, they're talking to each other, solving problems, and optimizing themselves in real time. It's like your production line suddenly got a brain and decided it wanted to work smarter, not harder. Now, Industry 4.0 isn't just about throwing fancy buzzwords like IoT and AI into the mix. It's about creating smart factories. Factories where physical systems interact seamlessly with digital ones, powered by real-time data. Think of it as the moment when your factory gets Wi-Fi and stops asking you for instructions every 5 seconds. Instead, it starts making decisions based on facts, data, and, dare I say, logic. But here's the kicker. While some companies are already riding this wave of transformation, others are still stuck trying to figure out which plug connects to which socket. The challenge isn't just adopting new technology, it's about creating an environment where technology works with your people, not around them. So, as we dive into this topic, think about your own organization. Are you leading the charge into Industry 4.0? Or are you still trying to convince the IT team to unblock the Wi-Fi? By the end of this, we'll see what it really takes to embrace this revolution and, more importantly, democratize the power of data to make every single member of your team part of this transformation. Let's take a step back, way back, and look at how we got here. Imagine you're standing at the beginning of the late 18th century. Factories as we know them don't exist yet. It's a world where everything is made by hand, one painstaking step at a time. Then comes the first industrial revolution, and it's like a thunderbolt of innovation. Mechanization is born. The steam engine roars to life, and suddenly we're not just humans toiling with tools, we've got machines doing the heavy lifting. Industries like textiles explode in productivity. People go from sewing shirts at home to operating power looms in factories. It's a game changer. But let's be honest, it's still very much a human-driven effort, just with a bit more horsepower. Fast forward to the second industrial revolution in the late 19th century, and now we've got electricity joining the party. Suddenly, the steam engine isn't the only star of the show. Factories get brighter, faster, and crucially, more connected. This is the era of mass production. Assembly lines, electric motors, and efficiency on a scale the world had never seen. Henry Ford builds cars not just for the wealthy, but for the average family. It's a revolution not just in industry, but in accessibility, and yet the machines are still mostly blind. They're powerful, but they don't know what's happening around them. They're dumb, in a sense. They only do what we tell them. Now let's jump to the late 20th century. The third industrial revolution. This one's driven by computers and digital technology. It's like the world got a software update. We go from mechanical control to digital precision. We start automating systems, using data to guide processes, and connecting things in ways that would have seemed like magic just decades earlier. Suddenly, we're not just producing more, we're doing it faster, cheaper, and with greater precision. But here's the catch. This era was still largely centralized. The data lived in silos guarded by IT teams and analysts. Most workers were left out of the loop, relying on reports handed down from above. And now here we are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, Industry 4.0. If the last three revolutions gave us machines, electricity, and computers, this one gives us intelligence. This isn't just about improving productivity, it's about creating systems that can think, adapt, and make decisions in real time. Machines that don't just run, but talk to each other, learn from the data, and optimize themselves. We've gone from dumb tools to smart systems, but, and this is a big but, there's a challenge. For all the technology at our disposal, a lot of companies are still stuck in old habits. Data is collected but not shared. Decisions are made by a handful of people at the top while everyone else is left guessing. It's like having a car with GPS but never bothering to type in the destination. This is where data democratization comes in. It's about breaking down barriers, giving access to insights to everyone, not just the chosen few, and empowering teams to work together in ways that were impossible before. So here's the question I want you to think about as we move forward. Is your organization still living in one of these earlier industrial revolutions, or are you ready to step into the fourth? Because Industry 4.0 isn't just about having the right technology, it's about using it to create smarter, faster, and more agile organizations where data is everyone's tool, not just a select few. And that's where the real revolution begins. Now that we've covered how we got here, let's talk about what's driving Industry 4.0 today. The technologies that are turning factories into, well, futuristic playgrounds for machines. I'm talking about IoT, AI, cloud computing, and a few other buzzwords that sound like they belong in a sci-fi movie. But these aren't just flashy terms. These technologies are fundamentally reshaping how businesses operate. Let's start with cloud computing. Think of it as the brain behind the operation. Instead of relying on stacks of servers hidden in some dusty corner of your office, cloud computing allows businesses to store and process data online. It's like upgrading from a paper filing system to Google Drive, except instead of managing your vacation photos, it's handling terabytes of operational data. What's the benefit? Flexibility, collaboration. You don't need to be on site to access critical data, which means you can manage operations from anywhere, whether that's your office, your home, or the beach. Although if you're working from a beach, maybe don't tell your team, then there's the Internet of Things, or IoT, this is where the magic really happens. IoT is like giving every machine in your factory a voice. Sensors are embedded into equipment to collect data on everything from temperature to vibration levels. It's as if your machines suddenly got really chatty. Hey, I'm overheating here. My motor's wearing out. IoT makes it possible for businesses to know what's happening on the factory floor in real time without having to wait for something to break down. It's proactive maintenance at its finest, and it saves companies millions in downtime and repair costs. Now, let's throw AI into the mix. This is where machines go from chatty to downright smart. AI analyzes the data collected by IoT sensors and cloud platforms, spotting patterns that no human could ever see. For example, AI might tell you, hey, every time machine A slows down, it's because of a bottleneck on line B. It's like having a super intelligent operations manager who never sleeps, never takes a coffee break, and never gets annoyed when you ignore their advice. These technologies don't just exist in isolation, they work together. IoT collects the data, cloud computing stores and processes it, and AI analyzes it to make recommendations or even take action automatically. It's a beautifully orchestrated system, when it's implemented well, that is. But here's the reality check. None of this works if your data is stuck in silos or only accessible to a select few. All the fancy technology in the world won't help if your team can't use the insights it provides. That's why data democratization is the linchpin of Industry 4.0. The machines might be smart, but it's the people using the data that drive real innovation. So, as you think about these technologies, ask yourself, is your organization just collecting data for the sake of it, or are you actually empowering your team to act on it? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the technology, it's about who gets to use it. And that's where we're heading next. Let's zoom in on one of the most exciting concepts driving Industry 4.0, cyber physical systems, or CPS for short. I know it sounds like something straight out of a robotics convention, but it's actually one of the most transformative ideas in modern manufacturing. Think of CPS as the bridge between the physical world, the machines, the equipment, the factory floor, and the digital world where data is processed, analyzed, and turned into actionable insights. Here's how it works. Imagine your factory floor. Machines are running, conveyors are moving, sensors are collecting data. Now, instead of that data disappearing into some mysterious server in the backroom, it's immediately analyzed and used to control those very same machines in real time. That's CPS in action, a seamless interaction between physical processes and digital intelligence. It's like giving your factory a nervous system. The sensors are the nerves sending signals to the brain, the software, which then sends instructions back to the body, or in this case, the machines. Let's make this even more relatable. Picture a self-driving car. As it's moving, it's constantly collecting data about its surroundings, traffic, road conditions, pedestrians, you name it. But that data isn't just sitting there. It's processed in milliseconds to make decisions, like when to brake or accelerate. Cyber physical systems bring that same level of coordination and responsiveness to manufacturing. Machines aren't just working harder, they're working smarter. What's driving this transformation? IoT and cloud computing, two technologies we touched on earlier. IoT is the eyes and ears of the system, gathering data from sensors embedded in every piece of equipment. Cloud computing is the brain processing that data and making it accessible across the organization. Together, they allow CPS to operate like a finely tuned orchestra, where every instrument, every machine is playing its part perfectly. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Data democratization. With CPS, the goal isn't just to have a smart system, it's to make sure everyone in the organization can leverage that system. Imagine if only one musician in the orchestra had the sheet music. Chaos, right? The same goes for CPS. For it to work effectively, the insights it generates need to be available to everyone, from operators on the factory floor to executives in the boardroom. But let's be honest, most companies aren't quite there yet. Many are still stuck in a world where data is siloed, shared sparingly, and only analyzed after something goes wrong. It's like driving a car by only looking in the rearview mirror. Cyberphysical systems are all about looking forward, predicting issues before they happen, and adapting in real time. So the big question is, how do you implement a system like this? And more importantly, how do you ensure the data it generates is used effectively? That's what we're going to explore as we dive deeper into the principles of Industry 4.0 and data democratization. Now let's talk about the crux of the problem in our story, data democratization, or more accurately, the lack of it. This is where Factory A and Factory B diverge completely. At Factory A, data is tightly guarded. Sure, they have smart machines and IoT sensors sending streams of information, but that data gets locked away, accessible only to a small group of people, the IT department, and a handful of executives. It's like having a gold mine and deciding to keep all the shovels in a locked shed. The result? Frontline workers, the people who are closest to the action, are left guessing. Decisions are delayed, opportunities are missed, and frustration mounts. It's a system that screams, "Trust us, we've got this," while completely ignoring the talent and expertise of the broader team. Factory B, on the other hand, embraced data democratization, and here's what that really means. It's not just about sharing data, it's about creating a culture where everyone, from the floor manager to the forklift operator, has access to the insights they need to make informed decisions. In Factory B, if a machine starts showing signs of wear, the technician doesn't have to wait for a manager to notice. They can access real-time data, spot the trend, and act on it immediately. If the supply chain starts slowing down, the team isn't left scratching their heads. They're already rerouting orders because they have the tools to identify and solve problems as they emerge. But let's be real here. For many companies, this is easier said than done. Over 75% of factories still struggle with poor data quality, data that's incomplete, inconsistent, or just plain inaccessible. Add to that the fact that only about 30% of organizations actively promote knowledge sharing, and it's no wonder so many teams are stuck waiting for someone else to figure things out. The key to data democratization is breaking down these barriers. It's about giving every employee access to high quality, structured, and consistent data, and more importantly, making sure they have the skills and tools to use it. This is where the idea of citizen analysts comes into play. These are people who aren't data scientists, but who can still use self-service analytics tools to get the answers they need, without having to call IT for help. Imagine what your organization could achieve if everyone could pull insights from the data themselves. That's the kind of agility Factory B has. And it's exactly what Factory A is missing. At its core, data democratization isn't just a technological shift, it's a cultural one. It's about fostering a workplace where knowledge isn't hoarded but shared, where silos are torn down and collaboration thrives. Because at the end of the day, the smartest factories aren't just the ones with the best technology. They're the ones where everyone has the power to use it. So let's keep following this journey. How do we get there? How do we turn data from an exclusive asset into a shared resource? And what cultural changes are needed to make this vision a reality? We're just getting started. Now let's dive into how Factory B got it right. Because let's be honest, creating a truly data-driven organization doesn't just happen by accident. It takes a deliberate effort to build the capabilities that make data democratization possible. At Factory B, they started by tackling the cultural shift head on. Instead of clinging to the old school mentality where only top executives had access to the data, they flipped the script. Leaders at every level began modeling what it meant to make decisions based on data, not just intuition or gut feelings. It wasn't about undermining experience, it was about enhancing it with facts. And this shift wasn't just for show. They actively encouraged employees to share knowledge, break down silos, and collaborate across teams. It wasn't always easy. There were plenty of, but we've always done it this way moments, but they persisted. Over time, a culture of data sharing and trust took hold. But a cultural shift wasn't enough on its own. Factory B also knew they needed quality data, and I mean good data. High quality, consistent, and accessible. None of this. Here's a spreadsheet I made last week. I think it's still relevant. They implemented automated data collection systems to ensure accuracy and reduce redundancy. After all, if your data isn't reliable, how can you expect anyone to trust it? And trust is everything. Without it, your shiny dashboards and fancy analytics tools are about as useful as a weather app that only works on sunny days. Now, here's where they really excelled. Employee empowerment. They recognized that data democratization only works if people know how to use the data they're given. So they invested in training programs to create what we call citizen analysts. Employees who aren't data scientists but can confidently navigate analytics tools to answer their own questions. They didn't stop at just training, though. They promoted interdisciplinary skills so employees could connect the dots between their roles and the bigger picture. In other words, they made data not just a tool, but a superpower for their team. And let's not forget the systems. Collaboration platforms became the backbone of their operations, making it easy for employees to share insights and ideas across teams. They built integrated IT systems to ensure everyone was looking at the same version of the truth. No more debates over whose numbers were correct. With these platforms in place, their workforce became more agile, informed, and proactive. Finally, they embedded continuous improvement into their DNA. Instead of treating data democratization as a one-and-done project, they set up processes to keep getting better. Employees were encouraged to propose improvements, analyze the outcomes, and refine their practices based on what the data told them. It wasn't just about adopting new technologies, it was about creating a mindset where innovation became second nature. Now compare this to Factory A. They might have the same technology on paper, but without these capabilities, they're running a completely different race. Data sits unused. Employees are frustrated. Decisions are slow, and every day they fall a little further behind. So here's the takeaway. Data democratization isn't just about giving people access to data. It's about empowering them with the culture, skills, and systems they need to do something meaningful with it. And the question for your organization is simple. Do you have these capabilities in place, or are you still hoping that a shiny new dashboard will magically solve all your problems? Let's move forward and explore how to bridge this gap. And this is where the cracks in the system start to show. When you zoom out and look at the current state of data democratization, you'll see that most organizations, unfortunately, look a lot more like Factory A than Factory B. Let's start with limited access to data. Over 60% of companies are still relying on outdated file sharing methods like network drives or email chains. Yes, network drives, the same things we were using 20 years ago. It's almost poetic, isn't it? In an era where we can have AI-powered assistants predicting customer trends, some organizations are still treating data like it's a dusty old file cabinet that only certain people have the key to. What does that mean? Frontline employees who are closest to the action have to make decisions in the dark or wait for reports that arrive too late to matter. And it gets worse. Even when companies do have access to data, the quality of that data is often, let's call it, questionable. Over 75% of surveyed factories don't meet the standards necessary for effective data democratization. Inconsistent, incomplete, or redundant data creates chaos. Imagine trying to build a puzzle where half the pieces are missing and the other half belong to a different puzzle altogether. It's no wonder so many companies struggle to make timely decisions. But the challenges aren't just technical, they're cultural too. Approximately 30% of organizations actively encourage knowledge sharing, which sounds decent until you realize the flip side. Two-thirds of companies don't. That's right. The majority of businesses are still operating in silos where teams guard their data like dragons guarding treasure. The problem? Data isn't treasure if it's sitting there unused. It's just dead weight. Without a culture of collaboration, even the best data sits idle while teams argue over whose version of the truth is right. And then there's employee empowerment, or in many cases, the lack of it. Sure, some employees know how to navigate basic IT systems, but when it comes to independently meeting their own information needs, only a small fraction have the tools or skills to make that happen. Without training and resources, employees are stuck waiting for answers, slowing down operations and stifling innovation. It's like giving someone a car, but never teaching them how to drive. All of this creates the perfect storm. When a crisis hits, like a supply chain disruption or a sudden shift in demand, companies that don't have democratized, high-quality data and empowered teams are left scrambling. Decisions take too long, insights are missed, and opportunities evaporate. And that's exactly what happens to Factory A in our story. They're blindsided by an issue that could have been spotted weeks earlier, if only the right people had the right data at the right time. Factory B, on the other hand, is ready because they've built a culture of collaboration, ensured their data is accurate and accessible, and empowered their employees to act. They see the problem coming and take action before it becomes a crisis. So, where does your organization stand? Are you still stuck in silos with outdated systems and limited access to data, or are you laying the foundation for agility and innovation? Because as we'll see in the next scene, the difference between success and failure comes down to this: your ability to democratize data and empower your teams to act. And here we are, the point in the story where the challenges come to a head. Factory A is about to face a crisis, and everything we've discussed so far, the lack of access, poor data quality, cultural silos, it's all about to show its consequences. But before we dive into that, let's take a closer look at these challenges because they're not unique to Factory A. They're issues that plague organizations across industries. The first big obstacle: cultural resistance. Now, you'd think that in this data-driven age, every company would be on board with sharing insights and fostering collaboration, but the reality is far less rosy. In two-thirds of organizations, knowledge sharing isn't just rare, it's actively discouraged. Teams operate in silos, decisions are made in isolation, and employees are left guessing about what's happening outside their bubble. It's like playing a team sport where no one passes the ball. Sure, you might score occasionally, but you're not winning any championships. Then there's data quality and accessibility, which might as well be the Achilles heel of data democratization. Over 75% of factories don't meet the basic standards for clean, actionable data. It's inconsistent, incomplete, and often duplicated, creating more confusion than clarity. Imagine trying to cook dinner with a fridge full of random ingredients and no recipe. That's what it feels like to make decisions with bad data. Worse, even when the data is good, it's often locked behind systems that most employees can't access. It's there, but it might as well not be. And then we have the skills gap, or as I like to call it, we have the tools, but no one knows how to use them problem. Many employees are perfectly capable in their day-to-day tasks, but when it comes to analyzing data or using advanced IT systems, they're out of their depth. This is where the concept of citizen analysts becomes critical. Without training and support, employees can't leverage the data they need, and the organization ends up with tools collecting dust instead of driving innovation. Finally, let's not forget leadership's role, or lack thereof, in addressing these challenges. Too often, leaders talk a big game about being data-driven, but when it comes to actually creating a culture of democratization, they fall short. Executives need to lead by example, showing employees that decisions based on data are more than just a checkbox on a PowerPoint slide. They're the foundation of how the company operates. Now, all these challenges, cultural resistance, poor data quality, skills gaps, and leadership missteps, might seem abstract, but for Factory A, they're about to become very real. Here's what happens. A supply chain disruption hits. A key material runs out, production slows to a crawl, and orders start piling up. The problem: the signs were there weeks ago, buried in the data. But because only a handful of people had access to that data, and because no one was empowered to act on it, the crisis goes unnoticed until it's too late. Meanwhile, over at Factory B, things look very different. The same disruption hits, but it's caught early, thanks to their data democratization efforts. Employees on the ground spot the trend and take action, rerouting orders, optimizing inventory, and keeping production running smoothly. It's not just a story of technology, it's a story of culture, empowerment, and readiness. So let's ask the hard questions. Where is your organization in this picture? Are you setting yourself up to thrive like Factory B, or are you heading for a crisis like Factory A? Because here's the truth. Industry 4.0 isn't just about adopting technology. It's about addressing these challenges head-on and building an organization where data is accessible, actionable, and shared. Let's move to the next step. What does it actually take to overcome these challenges and create a true culture of data democratization? Now let's step out of the story for a moment and take a look at the real world. Because this isn't just a hypothetical tale of two factories. The principles of data democratization are already being put to the test in industries all over the globe, and the results speak for themselves. Let's start with a sector where speed and safety are non-negotiable. Offshore drilling. Imagine the stakes here. Every second of downtime costs thousands of dollars, and safety failures can have catastrophic consequences. Companies in this field have embraced data democratization to empower every worker, from the control room to the rig itself. With real-time monitoring and access to actionable insights, employees can make decisions quickly and effectively. For example, instead of waiting for a central office to approve maintenance, workers can spot a potential issue using analytics tools and take action immediately. The result: reduced downtime, better resource allocation, and enhanced safety protocols. This isn't just a win for efficiency. It's a win for everyone working in high-stakes environments. Now let's shift gears to a completely different industry, banking. You might not think of customer service as a place where data democratization plays a big role, but you'd be surprised. In banks that embrace this approach, frontline employees, those sitting across from customers, have access to comprehensive data. They can see everything from transaction histories to customer preferences, allowing them to offer personalized service that makes customers feel valued. Gone are the days of "let me transfer you to someone else who knows more." With democratized data, the person you talk to first is empowered to solve your problem. On the other side of the equation, democratized data also strengthens risk management. By giving employees at all levels access to data trends, banks can spot potential risks early and stay ahead of compliance issues. It's a far cry from the traditional top-down approach where only a small group of analysts ever sees the bigger picture. What do these examples have in common? They both highlight the transformative power of putting data into the hands of the people who need it most. Whether it's a drilling rig operator preventing a breakdown or a bank teller delivering exceptional customer service, the story is the same. Democratized data turns reactive organizations into proactive ones. It creates agility, fosters innovation, and most importantly, empowers teams to make decisions when and where they matter most. Now think about your own organization. Do you see parallels? Are there processes that could be optimized if data wasn't locked away or delayed by unnecessary bureaucracy? Because whether you're working in manufacturing, healthcare, logistics, or retail, the lesson is clear. The companies that thrive in Industry 4.0 aren't the ones with the most data. They're the ones who use it best. As we move forward, let's explore what it takes to bring these principles to life in your organization. How can we bridge the gap between technology and people to make data democratization not just a concept, but a reality? So let's go back to our story. Factory A is now in crisis. Their production line is stalling, orders are backing up, and management is scrambling to figure out what went wrong. But here's the thing. They had the data all along. Buried in their systems, the warning signs were there. A dip in supply chain metrics, increased machine wear, and inventory levels creeping toward critical lows. But none of it was acted on because the data was either too poor in quality or inaccessible to the people who needed it most. This is where data quality and decision support systems make or break an organization. Let's start with the facts. Over 75% of factories don't meet the minimum standards for effective data utilization. Think about that. 3/4 of companies are trying to make decisions based on incomplete or inconsistent information. It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing and the other half belonging to a completely different puzzle. Even in factories that do have decent data quality, decision support capabilities are severely lacking. Only 24.59% of companies can effectively visualize operational data, and just a staggering 0.51% are capable of predicting outcomes. And let's not even talk about automated decision making. It's virtually non-existent in most organizations, sitting at 0% adoption in many cases. This means most companies are still playing catch-up, relying on outdated reports instead of acting on real-time insights. Why does this matter? Because decision-making is only as good as the information it's based on. High-quality data ensures completeness, accuracy, and consistency, which are essential for both day-to-day operations and long-term strategic planning. Without it, organizations are left guessing, making reactive decisions that only address symptoms, not root causes. Now compare this to Factory B. Their data quality is rock solid. Automated collection systems ensure that everything is accurate, up to date, and redundant free. Their decision support systems are built to analyze and visualize data in real time, allowing employees at every level to spot trends, predict outcomes, and act quickly. When the same supply chain disruption hit Factory B, it wasn't a surprise. They saw it coming weeks earlier, made adjustments, and kept production running smoothly. Here's the kicker. This isn't just about technology. It's about mindset. It's about creating a culture where decisions are driven by data, not assumptions or outdated intuition. And that starts with investing in the systems, processes, and people needed to ensure data is reliable and actionable. So here's the question. Is your organization building decision support systems that empower real-time action, or are you still running on gut feelings and outdated reports? Because in the world of Industry 4.0, the companies that succeed are the ones that use data as a competitive advantage, not just a passive asset. Let's take a closer look at how organizations can implement the structures needed to enable this level of agility and precision. So, how did Factory B avoid the crisis while Factory A stumbled? It wasn't just the technology or the data. It was the organizational structure they put in place to support data democratization. Let's break it down. At the heart of Factory B's success was empowerment through decentralization. Instead of hoarding decision-making power at the top, they distributed it across the organization. Every employee, regardless of their role, had the tools and the authority to act on data insights. Imagine you're a technician on the factory floor and you notice a pattern of machine wear that could lead to downtime. At Factory A, you'd probably have to report it, wait for approval, and hope someone higher up takes action. But at Factory B, you have the power to act immediately. That's what decentralization does. It fosters a sense of ownership and engagement because employees know they're trusted to make decisions. Then there's encouraging employee participation. Factory B didn't stop at giving people tools. They actively involved employees in the process of identifying and implementing improvements. Think about it. The people closest to the action often have the best insights into what's working and what's not. By tapping into this knowledge, Factory B turned every team member into a contributor to the organization's success. It wasn't just about using data, it was about using the collective intelligence of their workforce. And all of this worked because they created a supportive culture of continuous improvement. Data democratization isn't a set it and forget it project, it's an ongoing journey. Factory B fostered a culture where knowledge sharing wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. Collaboration platforms became second nature, and employees were trained to integrate data insights into their daily workflows. This wasn't just about hitting KPIs, it was about creating an organization that was constantly learning, adapting, and evolving. Now compare this to Factory A. Their structure was rigid and hierarchical. Employees weren't encouraged to share ideas, let alone act on them. Data was something that lived in reports, locked away from most of the workforce. Decisions were slow, reactive, and often disconnected from what was actually happening on the ground. The lesson here is simple. Data democratization isn't just about having the right technology. It's about having the right structure to support it. Decentralization, participation, and a culture of continuous improvement are the cornerstones of success in Industry 4.0. Without them, even the best data and tools will fall flat. So, think about your organization. Are you empowering your employees to take ownership of decisions? Are you encouraging participation and collaboration? And most importantly, are you building a structure that supports not just one-time success, but ongoing improvement? Because this isn't just about avoiding crises, it's about building a foundation for long-term resilience and innovation. Next, let's look at how these cultural aspects play into creating a truly data-driven organization. Now, let's talk about what really sets Factory B apart: culture. Because the truth is, technology can only take you so far. You can have the best data tools in the world, but if your organization isn't built on a culture that values and embraces data, it's like trying to run a race with one leg tied behind your back. Factory B understood this. They didn't just roll out new systems and dashboards, they actively fostered a data-driven culture. What does that mean? It means that decisions at every level of the organization were based on data, not intuition or gut feelings. Leaders became role models, using data to guide their strategies and showing employees that the numbers weren't just there to look pretty, they were there to make an impact. But it wasn't just about leadership. Factory B also prioritized encouraging knowledge sharing. And let's be honest, this doesn't come naturally to most organizations. Teams love their silos. They love their secret sauce. But Factory B broke those barriers down. They created incentives for employees to collaborate, whether it was through cross-functional projects, suggestion programs, or even simple recognition for sharing insights. They made it clear that knowledge isn't power unless it's shared. Here's an example. In Factory A, if a production line manager notices a recurring issue, they might keep it to themselves or, at best, escalate it to a supervisor. In Factory B, that same manager is part of a culture where they're encouraged and expected to share their findings with other teams. Maybe the issue isn't isolated to one line. Maybe it's a broader trend that could save the company millions if addressed. That's the power of a culture built on collaboration. But Factory B didn't stop there. They actively involved employees in the democratization process itself. They didn't just tell people, here's the data, good luck. They created forums for cross-functional collaboration, bringing in diverse perspectives to solve problems. Because when you combine different viewpoints, you often uncover solutions that a single team might never have considered. Compare this to Factory A, where leadership talked about being data-driven but rarely practiced it. Teams operated in silos, and employees were reluctant to share information for fear of being judged or ignored. Decisions were still made based on instinct, and the potential of their data was left untapped. The lesson here is clear. Data democratization isn't just a technical shift, it's a cultural one. It requires leaders to lead by example, employees to share and collaborate, and organizations to embrace change as an opportunity, not a threat. So, as you think about your own organization, ask yourself, are you fostering a culture where data is valued, shared, and acted upon? Or are you still relying on outdated habits and hierarchies? Because in the world of Industry 4.0, culture isn't just a nice to have, it's the glue that holds everything together. Let's move forward and dive into how we can equip employees with the skills they need to thrive in this culture. All right, so now we know that technology and culture are two big pieces of the puzzle, but let's not forget the most important factor, the people. Because even in Factory B, the shining star of data democratization, none of this would work without employees who had the skills and confidence to use the tools at their disposal. Let's break this down with what we'll call the 3 pillars of employee capability. The first pillar, IT competencies. At Factory B, employees weren't just trained to use a dashboard, they were taught to understand the systems behind it. This doesn't mean every operator became a programmer overnight, but they had a solid grasp of how the technology worked, so they weren't intimidated by it. In contrast, over 59% of employees in most companies can only handle the basic functions of IT systems. They can run a report but can't customize it or dig deeper into the data, and only about 28% truly understand how those systems connect and function, leaving a massive gap in capability. Factory B bridged that gap with ongoing training, ensuring employees weren't just users, they were collaborators with the technology. Now, the second pillar, data utilization skills. This is where Factory B truly shined. They embraced the idea of creating citizen analysts, employees who weren't traditional data scientists, but could still use self-service analytics tools to get the insights they needed. The key here was empowerment. Factory B didn't just dump data on employees and expect them to figure it out. They taught them how to analyze, interpret, and act on it. At Factory A, by contrast, fewer than 4% of employees had the skills to use data beyond the basics. The rest stuck waiting for reports or help from IT. Here's the magic of what Factory B did. By teaching employees to navigate structured, consistent data independently, they freed up their IT team for more strategic work, while giving frontline employees the power to solve problems in real time. That's how you turn data from a bottleneck into an accelerator. And finally, we have the third pillar, interdisciplinary skills. This might be the most overlooked part of data democratization. At Factory B, employees weren't just focused on their individual tasks, they were trained to understand how their work connected to the bigger picture. Over 61% of their workforce was aware of how neighboring processes worked, and they factored that knowledge into their decisions. This cross-functional awareness created collaboration opportunities that most companies only dream of. Meanwhile, Factory A, their teams worked in silos, rarely considering how their actions impacted others. Only 10% of their workforce actively engaged in interdisciplinary problem solving. Now think about what happens in a crisis when employees lack these capabilities. At Factory A, the signs of an impending issue were there, but no one could piece them together. The IT team was too busy handling basic requests, and employees on the ground didn't know how to interpret the data in front of them. At Factory B, Those same employees caught the problem early because they had the skills to see what was happening, understand the broader context, and act decisively. So, the question for your organization is this: are you equipping your employees to thrive in a world of data-driven decision-making, or are you leaving them behind? Because at the end of the day, technology and culture mean nothing without a workforce that's ready to use them. Let's move on to explore the technological infrastructure that supports this transformation. We've talked about culture, we've talked about skills, but here's the question that really brings it all together. Do you have the technological infrastructure to make data democratization work? Because let's face it, even the most motivated employees and collaborative culture can only go so far if the tools they're using belong in a museum. Factory B understood this. They knew that data quality and accessibility were non-negotiable. Without high-quality data, even the smartest systems and the most talented employees are operating in the dark. So, they implemented automated data collection systems to ensure their data wasn't just accurate, it was timely, consistent, and always available. Compare that to Factory A, where over 75% of their data didn't meet basic standards. Data was redundant, incomplete, and often just plain wrong, creating a mess that no one wanted to deal with. But it wasn't just about the quality of the data, it was about how that data was shared. Factory B invested in collaborative IT systems that allowed teams across the organization to access and use data seamlessly. Think about that for a second. Instead of emailing spreadsheets back and forth or debating whose version of the numbers was correct, employees at Factory B worked from a single source of truth. Collaboration became second nature because the tools they used made it easy. At Factory A, meanwhile, only 2.26% of their internal systems were truly collaborative. The rest? Disconnected silos that did more to confuse than to clarify. Let's talk about integrated data models, another area where Factory B thrived. They built systems that combine data from across the organization: production, supply chain, customer service, you name it. This holistic approach meant they could spot patterns and trends that others missed. In contrast, Factory A's fragmented systems meant decisions were made in isolation, with teams only seeing a small piece of the puzzle. The result: slow responses, missed opportunities, and a lot of finger pointing. But here's the key. All of this technology was designed with one goal in mind: empowering people. The tools weren't just for the IT team or senior management, they were built to be accessible to everyone, because Factory B understood that democratizing data isn't just about making it available, it's about making it usable. The infrastructure was intuitive, scalable, and adaptable, ensuring that as their business grew, their systems grew with them. Factory A, on the other hand, treated technology like a band-aid. They implemented flashy tools without addressing the underlying issues of accessibility and integration. The result? A lot of expensive systems that no one really used and employees who were just as frustrated as before. So here's the question for you. Does your technological infrastructure help your employees act on data, or does it just create more hurdles? Are your systems empowering collaboration and decision-making, or are they slowing you down? The right infrastructure is the foundation of data democratization. It ensures that high-quality data is accessible to everyone, that teams can collaborate seamlessly, and that insights can be turned into action. As we move forward, let's look at how organizations can prepare for the future of data democratization and the trends shaping what's next. Let's shift gears and take a look at what's on the horizon. Because while Factory B's approach to data democratization has set them up for success today, the reality is that this journey is far from over. Industry 4.0 isn't static, it's evolving, and the organizations that succeed in the long term are the ones that stay ahead of the curve. So, what are the trends shaping the future of data democratization? The first big shift is cultural transformation in organizations. If you think culture was a challenge before, just wait. As data democratization deepens, the pressure to foster a data-driven mindset will only increase. Leaders will need to go beyond talking the talk. They'll need to walk the walk. That means creating environments where all employees feel empowered to access, analyze, and act on data, not just the tech-savvy few. It's about making data part of the company's DNA, embedded in every decision at every level. Then there's the integration of advanced technologies. We're talking about tools like 5G, blockchain, and next-gen IoT systems. These aren't just buzzwords. They're enablers of real-time data access, better connectivity, and more secure data sharing. Imagine a factory floor where every piece of equipment not only collects data but communicates it instantly to the systems and people who need it, or supply chains where blockchain ensures every data point is tamper-proof and traceable. These technologies are the backbone of the next wave of data democratization, pushing organizations from reactive to truly proactive operations. But perhaps the most exciting trend, and the one with the biggest human impact, is the rise of citizen analysts. Organizations are realizing that they can't rely solely on data scientists and IT teams to bridge the gap between data and action. Instead, they're focusing on empowering employees to become analysts in their own right. This means investing in training programs, rolling out intuitive analytics tools, and fostering a culture where curiosity is rewarded. The result? Teams that don't just consume data, but actively use it to drive innovation and solve problems in ways that were unthinkable before. Of course, these trends bring their own challenges. Cultural transformation takes time, technology requires investment, and building a workforce of citizen analysts isn't a quick fix, but the payoff, it's enormous. Companies that embrace these trends won't just be more efficient, they'll be more resilient, more agile, and more competitive in an ever-changing market. So as we wrap up this journey through data democratization, here's the question I want to leave you with. What are you doing today to prepare for tomorrow? Are you building a culture that's ready for change? Are you investing in the technologies and training that will keep your organization ahead of the curve? Because the future of Industry 4.0 belongs to the companies that don't just adapt to change, but anticipate it. Let's move to the final piece. How to make this all actionable and ensure your organization thrives in the age of data democratization. And here we are, the final piece of the puzzle. We've covered a lot of ground, the story of Factory A and Factory B, the importance of data democratization, and the cultural, technological, and human elements that make it all work. But now comes the real question. What's next for you? If there's one thing I want you to take away from this journey, it's this. A cultural shift is essential. No amount of technology, training, or good intentions will make a difference if your organization isn't ready to embrace a data-driven mindset. Culture is the foundation, the glue, that holds everything together, and that starts with leadership. At Factory B, leadership didn't just support data democratization, they championed it. They led by example, showing employees that decisions weren't made on instinct but on insights. They encouraged knowledge sharing, broke down silos, and fostered collaboration at every level. And that wasn't just a nice to have, it was a necessity. Because in the world of Industry 4.0, data isn't just another resource. It's the lifeblood of innovation, resilience, and growth. But here's the thing. Building a data-driven culture isn't about flipping a switch. It's a process. It's about asking tough questions. Are we empowering our employees to make decisions? Are we providing the tools and training they need to succeed? Are we breaking down silos and encouraging collaboration? And most importantly, are we ready to let go of outdated hierarchies and embrace a more decentralized, agile way of working? Now, I won't sugarcoat it. This isn't easy. Transforming your organization takes time, effort, and a willingness to get uncomfortable. But the rewards, they're worth it. Just look at Factory B. When the crisis hit, They didn't just survive, they thrived. They didn't react, they anticipated. And that's because they built a culture where everyone had access to data, the skills to use it, and the authority to act. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a challenge. Take a look at your own organization. Where are you on this journey? Are you still stuck in silos, or are you laying the groundwork for democratization? Are you empowering your employees to take ownership, or are they still waiting for decisions to come from the top? Because the companies that succeed in Industry 4.0 won't be the ones with the fanciest technology. They'll be the ones with the strongest cultures. The future is coming fast, and the choice is yours. Will you be like Factory A, struggling to keep up, or will you lead like Factory B, building a culture of empowerment, collaboration, and innovation? The time to act is now. Let's make it happen.